Hi, my name's Teresa Curvin. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I work with families who have neurodivergent children, so twice exceptional, gifted, autistic, just anyone wired differently who's struggling in school. So what I want to talk about today is just speaking to some possible, maybe easy, quote unquote, accommodations for students who learn differently. I work in the public school system in special ed right now, but I've worked in private schools, and I work with families in the Bay Area and across the United States and also globally. So I I have an idea of just school systems in general and how they're just missing neurodivergent learners. And I see a lot of different examples. And so I thought I would just kind of speak casually about some accommodations that, quite honestly, I'm not a teacher, but I see teachers doing them. It's just there's a disconnect between the curriculum and the requirements that teachers have to do and then what students need. And I think that's making it hard on teachers who many of the teachers I know intuitively get this, but there's nobody naming it, if that makes sense. So I thought I would name it. And these are just a few examples. And one thing that happens with students who are struggling with writing, and you can apply this to like first, second grade, but you can also apply it to high school. And I'll try to speak to the different levels. But the general idea is when we talk about writing, W-R-I-T-I-N-G, there's the manual writing with a pen or a pencil on the paper. So that's forming letters and writing in that way. Then there's writing as in typing into the computer. There's writing, so fill in there's rubrics. So do you know punctuation, things like that. And then there's the act of getting the contents of your brain out onto a piece of paper. So that's like forming a paragraph, forming an introductory paragraph, and then the bodies, and then the conclusion. So dumping the contents of your brain onto a piece of paper, I think for many neurodivergent learners in high school, sometimes that can be a frustration. But so I hope I'm making sense. And I didn't really learn to write my original ideas and thoughts until I was in grad school when I was in my early 30s. So I'm not sure what I was doing in high school, but I think I was just kind of repeating what I was supposed to say. And I think a lot of students do that, and I think people get by doing that, but I don't think that's what we want of our kids. And honestly, the students who have original ideas and have something different to say can sometimes be the ones that have a hard time writing. So the first accommodation I'm gonna try to talk about. Well, it's hard for me to just talk about one grade level, but an example is a student in high school who talks very fast and is on the autism spectrum, but is smart. He or she can be in general ed classes, but is in special education. And I'm not talking about one student. I'm kind of making a combination of different students I know, but naming one accommodation, if that makes sense. So they have a writing tutor, and they're very frustrated that the writing that they have to do in school is just very boring and tedious, like very angry and upset. So I think for a lot of, especially boys with ADHD who are smart in certain ways, can get very frustrated with the slowing down and the tedium. Like, do this kind of babyish writing lesson where you're just going to go through the punctuation. What I recommend, and what helps relieve a lot of the stress and anxiety from the student and also the teachers, especially teachers kind of get this and they make these assignments, but I'm just helping, if you're a teacher and you're listening, like trust your intuition, and I'm helping you just kind of nail it in to the ground a little more and make this the lesson for that child who it works with. And I'll tell you how I follow it through. So I talk about some students who are kind of backward learners. So as an example, there might be a sophomore in high school who is very frustrated with having to do the proper punctuation and having to handwrite. What I would recommend is just take a topic that student is interested in, or if it's an English class, if there's a topic they're interested in, or a book they've read that you're trying to understand if they got it, if they understood the book. And have them choose what they want to write about and just use the computer if they're faster on the computer. Let them just do, free form, just get it out like I'm talking right now. But they're going to be typing it dump the contents of their brain onto the page through the computer. And let them hand that in to you as an assignment. Read it, and then see, okay, you're testing for a few different things. And this is an important point. First of all, as their teacher, you need to know, did they read the book? Second, did they understand it? Did they comprehend what the book was about? If for some students where it's otherwise difficult to understand this, you can, but if they just get to do a dump of what's in their brain. It might be hard for you to follow because it's not going to be very linear, kind of like how I'm giving this to you right now. But you'll get a good idea if A, they read the book, and B, they understood it. And you might even hear something that you're surprised by. They might even apply it to something that's not even something you asked or you would expect of them. It might even go beyond grade level, or it might connect to something happening in the world, something like that. And I would definitely talk to them about that, and I want to say praise them, but acknowledge their level of understanding, especially if it goes beyond grade level, or if it's if you're proud of them. I think that's really important, because if a student is struggling with writing, literal writing, either handwriting or punctuation or all that stuff, there's probably they haven't been able to find their voice in a kind of academic setting for some of them, and that's their frustration. And that's where I come from the mental health aspect, is we need to understand what they know, however they can get that out. And then if you have your curriculum, your standards of, how you're going to grade them, if there's a punctuation, grammar, all that kind of stuff, I would say you can, do what you will as a teacher, but I would like to say that is actually a different aspect of their grade, if that makes sense. So I would say if a teacher just needs to know they understand the material, then that would be whatever grade you want to give based on their knowledge, what they understood, their comprehension. And then if they're still working on grammar, forming an essay, all that kind of stuff, that's fine-tuning their writing and getting it in a more linear, sequential way that school likes and that the world likes, but that doesn't suit their brain often, then that's a different exercise. And I almost wish we could make that a separate grade, because it's not a test of their knowledge. So I hope this makes sense. But I know teachers want to know, are they listening in class? Did they read the book? Did they understand it? And I think it's a different exercise to do punctuation, grammar, and the format of an essay and get all those little paragraphs right and conclusion, sentence, and all that. So I think separating things, and that's just one example. I think you can do that with biology. You can do that with the sciences. You could even do a hands-on experiment or a conversation to see if they understand the concept, and then grade separately for the application of it, or if it's physics, the math of it, or whatever. But in special education, I think that we owe that to our students to really understand them. And I say this again, I think a lot of teachers know this, but there isn't the curriculum, the standards, that all the stuff that teachers have to do in order to give a fair grade. I don't think it's fair, honestly, because there are some really smart students with original ideas, and they're learning what I call backward. They're going to have the ideas in their head. They're already integrating the knowledge, and they want to apply it somewhere else. They want to do fun things with what they already know, but they're being asked to do these kind of minuscule things that feel tedious to them and don't really relate to the topic. And so they, generally speaking, the boys just get angry. And they feel stupid, and then the girls just, they try to make it fit, but I think they just kind of end up being like puppets, saying what they think they're supposed to say instead of taking their really original information and doing something unique and exciting with it. And yeah, I don't think this happens all the time, but I think it happens pretty often. Let's just try to understand kids more rather than dumbing things down too. I know there's been a lot of conversations online about giving away grades or being forced by, administration to pass your students who you don't feel should pass or who haven't done this or that. I don't think we should do that. I don't think it serves the students, but I do think that there are a lot of students who deserve a grade that's more catered to how they learn and what they learn and what they know. So I don't know. That's just one example. I hope that helps, and I hope it gives teachers just permission to experiment with other things. What I really love is sometimes when I'm not a teacher, and I talk about how kids are wired and how they think and learn. And I love when a teacher asks me about how, a certain student, for help with a student, and I just talk about how they're wired, and then the teacher lights up with ideas of their own. I think when you're working with neurodivergent students and you have unique ideas, that works, number one, because you know your students, and number two, when they see you light up as a teacher and you're excited about doing something unique to you, they also light up. Like it's a back and forth thing. They learn to love the subject because a teacher loves it, and then when they learn to love their own brain through the eyes of their teacher, I think that's a beautiful thing. So anyway, I could go on and on, but that's it for today. I should probably do like a bio. No, that's boring. You can probably look at the bottom of underneath the YouTube video. Okay, bye.